Despite the adventure name and tough Dakar-inspired looks, Honda sees the Africa Twin Adventure Sports model as a more road-oriented tourer than the standard Africa Twin, and for the 2024 model year, it's taken a big step in that direction with an array of updates aimed at boosting the bike's continent crossing ability. The biggest single departure from the past is the adoption of a 19-inch front wheel and 110/80ths tire instead of the previous 21-incher and 90/90ths rubber. Updated styling and the disappearance of the manual transmission version from the UK market also pushes the adventure sport towards its touring role, while electronic suspension previously offered only on the higher spec versions of the bike becomes standard for 2024. The 1084cc parallel twin engine with its SOHC UniCam cylinder head, inspired by the CRF 450R motocrosser, and a 270-degree crankshaft to mimic the firing pattern of a 90-degree V-twin, is largely familiar but contains internal updates that promise a useful extra punch at low and mid-range speeds. The engine changes are shared with the standard 2024 Africa Twin, which will also remain available with the manual transmission and non-electronic suspension, while getting its own range of styling and technical updates. While peak power is unaltered at 100 horsepower, torque rises to 82 pound-feet, a 7% boost compared to the previous model, thanks to revisions including an increased compression ratio of 10.51 instead of 10.11, wider intake ducts, 65mm longer intake trumpets, and a new exhaust with a revised silencer to match the intake changes and improve both performance and sound. More impressive than the torque increase itself is the way peak is moved down in the rev range to 5,500 revolutions per minute, giving an overall curve that's substantially higher than the old models, and promising improved acceleration throughout the low and mid-revolution per minute ranges. There's a total of 6 rider modes: Tour, Urban, Gravel, Off-Road, and 2 rider-defined settings, each influencing the throttle response, power, ABS settings, and traction control. The traction control itself has 7 settings, all assisted by the bike's IMU that measures acceleration and lean angle to control the level of intervention. Wheelie control is also standard, also tied to the IMU, and with 3 settings to alter how high the front wheel can be lifted. The 2024 Africa Twin Adventure Sports chassis is shared with both the standard Africa Twin and the previous model, but for the new model year, there are a couple of key changes to alter the Adventure Sports position in the market. Firstly, there's no longer the option of a basic version without Showa EERA electronic suspension, and secondly, the 2024 bike gets a 19-inch front wheel instead of the 21-incher of the old model and the standard Africa Twin. The EERA suspension offers 4 settings: soft, mid, hard, and off-road, all pretty self-explanatory, plus a user mode that allows you to make more changes while on the move. The rear preload is also adjustable while moving. The switch to a 19-inch front wheel wearing a wider 110/80ths tire instead of the old 21-inch rim is part of a clear shift towards an on-road focus. It might blunt the bike's off-road ability slightly, but for the majority of the time it promises better grip and stability. Honda has also reduced the suspension travel for the Adventure Sports from 230mm front, 220mm rear, to 210mm front and 200mm rear, dropping the center of gravity and the seat height in the process to make the bike more manageable. Welcome. Given the Adventure Sports' hefty 253kg weight, the combination of shorter suspension and a smaller front wheel means there's 30mm less ground clearance than the standard Africa Twin. The trail is reduced from 113mm to 106mm, and the wheelbase is cut from 1574mm to 1550mm. That reduced suspension height promises to make the Africa Twin Adventure Sports both more comfortable and more accessible by bringing down the seat height down to 835mm, while an optional low seat drops it to under the 800mm mark at 795mm. As well as being lower, the standard seat is 15mm thicker than the previous version, increasing comfort with 8% more seat area to spread your weight on. Like the standard Africa Twin, the Adventure Sport screen can be adjusted to 5 positions and sits on a new-look front fairing designed to improve wind protection and aerodynamics. At 24.8 liters, The Adventure Sport's fuel tank is 6 liters larger than the base models, and with claimed economy of 57.6 mpg, it should be good for a range of over 300 miles. Like the standard Africa Twin, the Adventure Sports features a big 6.5-inch TFT color touchscreen display, which can be operated with gloves on to control its main functions and modes. Bluetooth is standard, as is Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, with a USB port to the right of the display to physically connect a phone. As well as LED headlights and DRL, the Adventure Sports features 3-stage cornering lights that automatically illuminate the inside of turns depending on lean angle, as measured by the IMU, and like previous models, there's a large sump guard, despite the focus shifting further towards on-road use.